Life doesn't ask for permission before it hits you. One day you're standing strong, the next day everything falls apart. You can't control everything that happens in your life, and the moment you accept this truth, you begin to free yourself. Most people waste enormous amounts of energy fighting reality, asking why things went wrong, replaying events in their minds, or wishing the past had unfolded differently. But life does not respond to resistance. It moves forward whether you agree with it or not. The real power you possess is not over circumstances, people, or outcomes. Your true power is over your response. Every situation arrives without asking who is ready for it. Loss, failure, rejection, and uncertainty appear suddenly, often at the worst possible time. When this happens, instinct takes over. Emotions surge, fear tightens its grip, and reaction feels automatic. But reacting is not the same as responding. Reaction is immediate and uncontrolled. It is driven by panic, anger, or despair. Response, on the other hand, is chosen. It is deliberate. It creates space between the event and your action, and in that space lies your strength. Two people can face the same setback and walk away with completely different lives. One collapses under the weight of it, allowing bitterness to define them. The other absorbs the impact, adjusts their footing, and moves forward wiser and stronger. The difference is not luck, intelligence, or background. The difference is response. When you respond instead of react, you stop allowing life to dictate who you become. You reclaim authorship over your own story. Responding does not mean pretending pain does not exist. It does not mean suppressing emotion or forcing positivity. It means acknowledging reality without letting it control your identity. Pain is real, but it does not have the authority to decide your future unless you hand it that power. When you choose how to respond, you choose the direction of your growth. You transform hardship from an enemy into a teacher. Life will test you repeatedly because growth demands resistance. Comfort does not build resilience, pressure does. When you respond with patience instead of panic, with clarity instead of chaos, you train yourself to remain steady in unstable conditions. Over time, this steadiness becomes part of who you are. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. What once broke you become something you can carry without losing yourself. There is a quiet confidence that develops when you realize this truth. You stop fearing problems because you know they cannot take away your power to choose. Even when outcomes are uncertain, you remain grounded because your response is within your control. This mindset does not remove challenges from your life, but it removes their ability to dominate you. You no longer feel helpless. You feel prepared. When life throws something unexpected at you, pause, breathe. Ask yourself not what you feel like doing, but what kind of person you want to be in this moment. That single question can change everything. It shifts your focus from survival to growth, from fear to intention. Over time, these small moments of conscious response compound into a life of resilience and inner strength. In the end, overcoming anything life throws at you is not about avoiding hardship or mastering every situation. It is about mastering yourself. Circumstances will change, people will disappoint, and plans will fail. That is the nature of life, but when you learn to respond instead of react, you carry a form of strength that cannot be taken from you. This is the real victory. No matter what life brings, you remain standing, moving forward with purpose, clarity, and unshakable control over the one thing that truly matters: your response. Pain is an unavoidable part of life, but suffering is not. The difference between the two lies in meaning. Pain is what happens to you, meaning is what you give to it. When pain arrives without meaning, it feels random, cruel, and destructive. It drains energy, breeds resentment, and slowly convinces a person that life is unfair and hopeless. But when pain is given meaning, it transforms. It no longer exists to crush you, it exists to shape you. This is the hidden power that allows people to endure what once seemed impossible. Most people ask the wrong question when hardship strikes. They ask, "Why is this happening to me?" That question has no satisfying answer, and it keeps the mind trapped in frustration. The more powerful question is, "What is this trying to teach me?" The moment you ask that, pain stops being an enemy and becomes a message. It forces reflection, growth, and awareness. Instead of draining you, it begins to strengthen you from the inside. History and human experience prove this truth repeatedly. Those who survive the deepest struggles often emerge with greater wisdom, compassion, and clarity. Not because the pain was pleasant, but because they found meaning within it. Meaning creates direction. It tells you that this moment is not the end of your story, but a chapter shaping the person you are becoming. Without meaning, pain feels endless. With meaning, pain becomes temporary and purposeful. Giving meaning to pain does not require pretending that hardship is good. Loss still hurts. Failure still stings. Betrayal still wounds. Meaning does not erase pain. It gives it a role. When you see pain as a refining force rather than a punishment, you stop asking life to be easier and start asking yourself to be stronger. This shift alone can change how you experience even the darkest moments. Meaning also restores control. Pain makes people feel powerless because it arrives unexpectedly and disrupts everything they thought was stable. Meaning gives power back by allowing you to decide what the pain will do to you. Will it make you bitter or better, closed or wiser, broken or deeper? The event itself may be uncontrollable, but the interpretation is always yours. And interpretation shapes reality. When pain has meaning, endurance becomes possible. People can survive incredible hardship when they believe it serves a purpose. Athletes endure intense physical strain because they see the goal beyond the pain. Parents sacrifice comfort because they see meaning in providing for their children. In the same way, when life hurts, meaning becomes the fuel that keeps you moving forward. It gives you a reason to wake up, to try again, to not give up when everything inside you wants to quit. Over time, meaning turns wounds into wisdom. What once hurt becomes insight. What once weakened you becomes the source of your strength. You begin to recognize patterns, understand yourself more deeply, and develop compassion for others who struggle. Pain, when processed with meaning, matures you. It strips away illusions, clarifies priorities, and forces you to live more intentionally. In conclusion, meaning is the bridge between pain and power. Life will hurt you in ways you cannot predict or prevent. That is unavoidable. But whether that pain destroys you or develops you depends entirely on the meaning you assign to it. When you choose meaning, you refuse to let suffering be wasted. You turn hardship into growth, wounds into wisdom, and struggle into strength. This is how pain stops controlling you and starts serving you. When pain has meaning, nothing you go through is ever truly in vain. Pressure is often misunderstood. Most people see it as a sign that something is going wrong, that they are failing, or that life is working against them. When pressure builds, fear usually follows, and with fear comes the urge to escape, quit, or numb the discomfort. But pressure is not evidence of defeat. In reality, pressure is often proof that growth is happening. It appears when you are being stretched beyond who you were toward who you are meant to become. Nothing valuable is formed without pressure. Nature itself demonstrates this truth. Muscles grow only when they are torn and stressed, then allowed to recover stronger than before. Coal becomes a diamond only after enduring intense pressure over time. Even skills develop through repetition, struggle, and failure. Pressure is not the enemy of progress. It is the mechanism through which progress is made. Without it, there is no transformation, only stagnation. When life applies pressure, it exposes weaknesses, but it also reveals potential. Moments of comfort rarely demand courage, discipline, or clarity. Pressure does. It forces you to confront your habits, beliefs, and limits. It shows you where you have relied on ease instead of strength. While this can feel uncomfortable, it is deeply valuable. Pressure brings truth to the surface, and truth is necessary for real growth. Many people try to avoid pressure by staying small, safe, or unchallenged. They choose familiarity over possibility, but avoiding pressure does not protect you, it limits you. A life without pressure may feel calm, but it rarely feels meaningful. Growth requires resistance. When pressure appears, it is often because you are stepping into a space that demands more from you. The discomfort you feel is not a warning to retreat, it is an invitation to rise. Pressure also teaches endurance. When everything is easy, resilience remains untested. But under pressure, you learn how strong you truly are. You discover that you can handle more than you thought, that you can adapt, endure, and keep moving even when conditions are not ideal. This realization changes the way you face future challenges. What once overwhelmed you becomes something you know you can survive. There is also clarity that comes from pressure. When life is calm, distractions multiply. Under pressure, what truly matters becomes clear. Priorities sharpen, excuses fall away. You stop wasting energy on what is unnecessary and focus on what is essential. Pressure strips life down to its core and forces you to act with intention. In this way, pressure does not confuse you, it refines you. The danger lies not in pressure itself, but in how it is interpreted. If you see pressure as proof of failure, it will crush you. If you see it as proof of growth, it will strengthen you. Perspective determines outcome. The same pressure that breaks one person becomes the force that shapes another. The difference is not the intensity of the pressure, but the mindset with which it is faced. In conclusion, pressure is not something to fear or escape. It is a signal that you are in the process of becoming more than you were. Life applies pressure to shape, refine, and strengthen you, not to destroy you. When you learn to recognize pressure as evidence of growth, you stop running from discomfort and start embracing transformation. Instead of asking how to avoid pressure, you begin to ask how to grow through it. And in doing so, you discover that pressure is not the weight that holds you down, but the force that lifts you higher. Most people believe that power is loud, fast, and emotional. They think strength is shown by immediate action, strong reactions, and visible intensity. But real power often looks very different. Real power begins with pause. When life hits hard, the natural instinct is to react instantly, to speak, to act, to defend, or to escape. Yet those first emotional impulses are rarely wise. They are driven by fear, anger, or panic, not clarity. The ability to pause before reacting is one of the most underrated skills a person can develop, and it is often the difference between regret and growth. When something unexpected happens, your body responds before your mind does. The heart races, the muscles tense, and thoughts scatter. This reaction is automatic, rooted in survival. But modern challenges are rarely life or death situations, even though they feel that way emotionally. Pausing interrupts this automatic response. It creates a small space between stimulus and action, and that space is where control lies. In that moment, you regain authority over yourself instead of surrendering it to the situation. Pausing does not mean doing nothing forever. It means delaying action long enough to choose wisely. It allows emotions to settle so that reason can speak. When you pause, you can ask yourself important questions. What is actually happening here? What outcome do I want? What response will move me closer to that outcome? These questions cannot be answered in the heat of reaction. They require calm, even if only for a few seconds. Many regrets in life are born from unpaused moments. Words spoken in anger that cannot be taken back. Decisions made in fear that create long-term consequences. Relationships damaged not by intention, but by impulse. A pause could have changed everything. It could have softened a response, delayed a decision, or prevented unnecessary damage. Pausing is not weakness, it is protection. This skill becomes especially powerful under pressure. When stress is high, the urge to react intensifies. But those are precisely the moments when a pause matters most. Choosing stillness in chaos is an act of discipline. It signals to yourself that you are not controlled by circumstances. Over time, this discipline builds inner stability. You become someone who can remain centered even when life is unstable. Pausing also allows you to respond instead of react. A reaction is about release. A response is about direction. Reactions discharge emotion. Responses move you forward. When you pause, you shift from emotional release to intentional movement. Your actions become aligned with your values instead of your feelings. This alignment creates consistency and self-respect. You trust yourself more because you know you are acting with purpose. There is also strength in silence. Not every situation requires immediate explanation or defense. Silence can de-escalate conflict, preserve dignity, and maintain control. When you do not rush to justify yourself or prove a point, you conserve energy and clarity. Silence, when chosen consciously, becomes a form of authority. In conclusion, pausing before reacting is a quiet form of mastery. It does not draw attention, but it changes outcomes. Life will always present moments that provoke emotion and demand response. You cannot prevent those moments, but you can decide how you meet them. When you pause, you reclaim control over your actions, protect your future from impulsive mistakes, and respond from a place of strength rather than chaos. This simple act, creating space before action, can transform conflict into clarity and pressure into power. Over time, the pause becomes your shield, your strategy, and your greatest advantage in overcoming whatever life throws your way. Every person lives inside a story, whether they realize it or not. This story is not just about what happens to them, but about what those events mean. The words you use in your mind, the explanations you repeat to yourself, and the conclusions you draw from experience quietly shape how you see the world and your place in it. When life becomes difficult, this inner story becomes even more powerful. It can either trap you in limitation or guide you toward growth. The mind constantly interprets events. A setback happens, and immediately a narrative forms. I'm not good enough. This always happens to me. Or nothing ever works out. These statements may feel true in the moment, but they are interpretations, not facts. Over time, repeated interpretations solidify into beliefs. Beliefs shape behavior. Behavior shapes results. In this way, the story you tell yourself becomes a self-fulfilling reality. What makes this inner story so influential is that it often goes unchallenged. Because it is familiar, it feels accurate. Because it is repeated, it feels permanent. But stories can be rewritten. When you become aware of your internal dialogue, you begin to see how much power it has over your emotions and decisions. Awareness is the first step toward change. Your inner story determines how you respond to obstacles. If your story says failure means you are incapable, you will avoid risk and retreat at the first sign of difficulty. If your story says failure is feedback, you will adjust, learn, and persist. The external situation remains the same, but the outcome changes entirely. The difference is not circumstance, it is narrative. Changing your inner story does not mean lying to yourself or denying pain. It means choosing a perspective that empowers rather than weakens you. Instead of saying, "This ruined everything," you might say, "This is difficult, but it's teaching me something valuable." This shift may seem small, but it changes your emotional state and your available options. Empowering stories expand possibility, limiting stories shrink it. The story you tell yourself also influences how you see others and the world. If your inner narrative is built on distrust or fear, you will interpret neutral events as threats. If it is built on growth and responsibility, You will see challenges as opportunities to develop character. Over time, your inner story becomes the lens through which you experience reality. Change the lens and the entire picture changes. One of the most important aspects of reshaping your inner story is consistency. A single positive thought will not undo years of negative conditioning, but repeated, intentional reframing gradually weakens old narratives and strengthens new ones. This process requires patience and honesty. You will catch yourself returning to old stories, and that is normal. Each time you notice and redirect, you reinforce your ability to choose. In conclusion, your inner story is not just commentary, it is a blueprint for your life. The way you interpret hardship determines whether it becomes a dead end or a doorway. When you learn to shape your inner narrative consciously, you stop being a passive character in your own life and become the author. Life will still bring challenges, but they will no longer define you negatively. Instead, they will become part of a larger story of growth, resilience, and purpose. When you change the story within, you change the reality you experience. Many people believe that strength is something you are either born with or not. They look at resilient individuals and assume those people were naturally tougher, more disciplined, or emotionally stronger from the start. This belief is comforting because it removes responsibility, but it is also limiting. The truth is that resilience is not a gift handed out at birth. It is a skill built over time, shaped by experience, repetition, and conscious effort. No one starts resilient, they become resilient. Resilience develops when you face difficulty and choose not to quit. Each challenge you endure becomes a layer of strength added to your foundation. At first, the weight feels unbearable. You doubt yourself, you feel overwhelmed. But when you survive something hard, even imperfectly, your mind records that survival. You learn, often subconsciously, that you can endure discomfort and uncertainty. This knowledge becomes a quiet source of confidence the next time life tests you. Comfort does not teach resilience. Ease does not prepare you for adversity. When life is smooth, there is no need to develop coping strategies, emotional regulation, or perseverance. These qualities only emerge under strain. This is why repeated trials, though exhausting, are also formative. Each one trains your nervous system, your mindset, and your emotional capacity to handle pressure more effectively. Resilience is also built through failure. Failure exposes gaps in skill, judgment, or preparation, but it also offers information. When you reflect instead of retreat, failure becomes feedback. You adjust, try again, and improve. This process strengthens resilience because it replaces fear of failure with familiarity. What once felt devastating becomes manageable. You stop seeing failure as a verdict on your worth and start seeing it as part of the process. Another important aspect of resilience is emotional regulation. Resilient people are not emotionless, they feel deeply. The difference is that they do not allow emotions to dictate their actions. This ability is trained through repeated exposure to discomfort. Each time you stay present instead of escaping, you strengthen your capacity to endure. Over time, emotions lose their power to overwhelm you because you have learned to sit with them without collapsing. Resilience also grows through responsibility. When you take ownership of your responses instead of blaming circumstances, you strengthen your sense of agency. You learn that while you cannot control what happens, you can control how you adapt. This mindset builds inner stability. You stop waiting for life to become easier and start becoming stronger. Responsibility, though heavy at first, becomes empowering. It is important to recognize that resilience is cumulative. You may not feel stronger after a single challenge, but over time patterns emerge. You recover faster. You panic less. You trust yourself more. What once required enormous effort becomes second nature. This is how resilience becomes part of your identity, not because life stopped being hard, but because you stopped being fragile in the face of it. In conclusion, resilience is not something you either have or lack. It is something you build through repeated exposure to difficulty, reflection, and conscious choice. Every challenge you face is an opportunity to strengthen this inner muscle. Life does not hand you resilience, it invites you to develop it. When you stop avoiding hardship and start engaging with it intentionally, you grow stronger in ways comfort could never provide. Over time, resilience becomes your quiet advantage, allowing you to face whatever life throws your way with steady confidence and enduring strength. Obstacles are often misunderstood as signs that you should stop, turn back, or reconsider your path. When something becomes difficult, the immediate assumption is that it is wrong, misaligned, or destined to fail. This belief causes many people to quit just as growth is beginning. But obstacles are not stop signs placed to end your journey. They are training grounds designed to prepare you for what lies ahead. When you learn to see obstacles through this lens, struggle loses its power to discourage you. Every meaningful goal requires a version of you that does not yet exist. The obstacles you encounter are not random interruptions. They are the experiences shaping that future version of yourself. Each challenge develops a specific skill, mindset, or level of discipline you will need later. If the obstacle were removed, the growth would be missing. In this way, difficulty is not delaying your success. It is building the capacity to sustain it. Obstacles reveal where you need to grow. They expose weaknesses in planning, patience, communication, or self-belief. This exposure can feel uncomfortable, even humiliating, but it is deeply valuable. What is revealed can be improved. Obstacles act as feedback systems, showing you what must be strengthened before you move forward. When you treat them as teachers instead of enemies, you extract value instead of frustration. Training is rarely enjoyable in the moment. Athletes do not train because it feels good. They train because it prepares them for performance. In the same way, life's obstacles condition you for future demands. They test your consistency when motivation fades, your discipline when comfort calls, and your character when no one is watching. These qualities cannot be developed through theory alone. They require real resistance. Seeing obstacles as training also changes how you measure progress. Instead of asking whether things are easy, you ask whether you are improving. Progress becomes internal rather than external. You may still face difficulty, but you notice that you handle it better than before. You recover faster, you adapt more creatively. These are signs of growth, even if circumstances remain challenging. One of the greatest dangers is interpreting obstacles emotionally instead of strategically. Emotion says, "This is too hard." Strategy says, "This is developing me." Emotion focuses on immediate discomfort. Strategy focuses on long-term capability. When you adopt a training mindset, you stop personalizing difficulty. You no longer see obstacles as proof that you are inadequate, but as evidence that you are being prepared for something greater. Over time, this perspective builds confidence, not because life becomes easier, but because you become more capable. You trust yourself to navigate complexity and uncertainty. You stop fearing obstacles because you recognize them as familiar terrain. Each one reinforces your belief that you can handle whatever comes next. In conclusion, obstacles are not barriers meant to block your path. They are challenges meant to build you. When you treat them as training rather than termination, you unlock their value. Life does not test you to make you quit. It tests you to make you stronger, wiser, and more prepared. Once you embrace this truth, obstacles lose their power to discourage you. They become part of your preparation, shaping you into someone capable of overcoming anything life throws your way.